Well, for countless cash-strapped South Africans, it is infuriating to get home from work to find your water and electricity having been shut off. Ask me, I know, since yesterday. This is the cold reality for many hard-working people. Senior reporter Barry Bateman checks in with residents in North Riding to see what they've been going through. Barry Bateman, yeah, it's been a struggle, and you sometimes think, you think this happens once in a while, but it appears to me that there's now a certain frequency to the double whammy of not having water while not having electricity at the same time.
Particularly community, Tula says, where I've been out here this morning and the community members come to me and explain to me their problems. The most recent one being electricity, compounded by the fact that they're also, we're going through nationally of load shedding. But there's been a power outage in this area since Sunday. And the load shedding that was here this morning was supposed to have ended at 10:30. But the power was only returned to the area about 20 minutes ago. So there was a delay even switching back on after the load shedding. With me today is City Power spokesperson Isaac MANGENA. Isaac, I'm going to ask the simple question because this is the one that the community wants to know. Why is this community constantly having power issues?
We've got serious problems in this area, including the issues of equipment failure, especially after load shedding, which you just mentioned currently. What was happening earlier this morning, the reason why we didn't have power after load shedding restoration was the issue with the transformer from Eskom side that has since been fixed. But we do have other issues that are long-standing in the community, including issues of vandalism and cable theft, and also issues of the third-party problems when they are busy digging the trenches, especially the fiber projects that are happening across this community. We have had those kind of problems and we are basically dealing with them. But the issue of cable theft is one of the biggest in this area, which we are trying to address in terms of increasing security so that we don't have these problems that we are currently experiencing.
Now, I hear your explanation about problems with transformers, I've spoken to the community. They say the last 24 months. Now, fixing a transformer is like putting a Band-Aid on the issue. There are underlying issues related to development and infrastructure upgrades, which would certainly alleviate your problems. What plans are there in place, or why haven't there been plans put in place to address that underlying issue?
There are plans in place to basically improve in terms of the network in this area so that we are able to cater for the growing community, the business community that is basically growing in this area, but also residential customers that are coming on board. So we do have that plan that we are working on to ensure that we deal with this. But over and above that, we are doing maintenance in this area to ensure that we deal with these issues of outages that keep on happening. But we can't run away from the fact that load shedding is really putting a strain on our resources. We were still dealing the thunderstorm that was happening, that happened a few weeks ago when load shedding actually came on, and we really were stretched in terms of the resources that we needed to basically put. We were forced to basically move the loads around from the three substations that are providing this community, that is Olivedale, Houtkoppen, and also North Riding substation. And that's why some of the residents who were basically belonging to Block 14 were this morning load shed at a different block because of we would have moved or swung the load from one block to the other. So we do have those kind of issues that we are really dealing with, but we apologize to the residents for the prolonged outages that have been happening in this area, which really are sorry about it.
Mr. MANGENA, you say apologize to this community quite regularly, given these things. Now, you tell us that there are plans in place, there is development. The question that the community wants to know is when? Or are you and I going to be back at this intersection in a week's time to ask you exactly the same question? So the thing is, when are we going to have a stable supply of power to this community?
I can promise, Barry, and put my head on the block that most of the faults that were recently inconveniencing this community were addressed. But some of those faults that we are basically dealing with, we will be able to deal with them by the end of this month, which is the 30th of October. So I want to come back here with you on the 30th of October and tell you that every fault that we had has been fixed. The other issues that we had that I wanted to raise was the issue of material that we had problems with basically procuring because of this NUMSA strike. We didn't have mini substations, we didn't have joints for the cables that had faulted during the week. So we have since managed to basically procure some of those mini substations which we installed yesterday, and some of those cables that we have procured, and we are currently engaged in emergency procurement to ensure that we deal with the rest of the problems. By the 30th of October, all of these problems, we are sure that we will have resolved them.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac Mangena. Well, there you have it, big promises. That's almost like a 2-week, 3.5-week promise that these issues will be sorted out. You speak to the community members here, they say they've heard it all before. So will we be back here in a couple of weeks? Tune into eNCA, we'll certainly be on their backs.
Yeah, definitely. Without a doubt, there, Barry, I believe everyone who's watching now will have heard. The man said he's putting his head on the block and says these problems, especially in that area where you are, will be sorted out by the 30th of October, just 2 days before the elections. And we'll take him up on that promise and see what happens with him, because he's put his neck on the block there. Has Isaac Mangena from City Power. Barry Bateman there with that update about that situation of power. In fact, let's continue with our focus on issues of service delivery. And I'm joined now by eNCA's Monique Mortlock with an update. Monique, good morning. So from your end of things, where you are, just locate us where you are and just let us know what are some of the main issues that are coming to the fore as we build up to local government elections.
Tulas, a little earlier this morning, I was in Dunoon, a township that has grown rapidly over the last few years with informal settlements cropping up, residents there complaining about sewage overflows. I'm now in a completely different part of the city, in the beautiful Hout Bay, in the suburb of Hangberg, where we've seen protests breaking out over the last couple of years. But not only protests, but engagements, discussions, various meetings between community members, residents calling for housing in this area, as they believe there is enough land for the housing. But it seems as if projects to address the housing issue has stalled a little later. We are going to be speaking to the City of Cape Town just to find out what is happening with the housing projects in this area, but to give us more of a sense of the problems that residents here in Hangberg are facing. I'm speaking to Lee Smith, a community activist. Lee, tell us about the challenges that the residents here in Hangberg have had in their dealings with the City of Cape Town over the last couple of years.
Hi, morning. First of all, it would be the honesty about it. I mean, if an administration can't come into a community and be honest with the people about the situation, then you're off to a shaky start, and everything from there would be fruit from the same poisonous tree. So a political will also comes into play, because there's been a hell of a lot of promises made. There's been court battles and court decisions and accords handed down, and to hold to what you promise in the Cape High Court is something that a community feels that you should honor. But if an administration can, put things to one side and only act on it when it suits them, and then still not deal honestly with that same community, then, like I said, again, fruit from the same poisonous tree, and progress is going to naturally be stalled. To touch even further on that subject, I mean, 10 years ago people fought, or 11 years ago now, people fought the Battle of Hout Bay. And that was what gave rise to the Hangberg Peace Accords. And the same people who fought then are still today living without water and electricity, basic essential services. The housing that was promised, only 72 housing units has been built in the last 11 years. And year on year, the city sends the housing allocation back to national government, which is something that is documented and proven. So a community like ours asks, I mean, if you're sending the money back every year, where is the will? You're not even coming in and speaking to the community, but you choose to come in here, shoot a rubber bullet, tear gas, stun grenades, while our children are in school. It doesn't seem to us that this is an administration that takes our community seriously. So we're not surprised at the situation being what it is.
Now, you mentioned that there have been a few dozen housing units built over the last couple of years. Any other progress? I mean, from where I'm standing, like a peaceful community, we see roads, speed bumps being painted. From just on surface level, it looks as if things are working. We do see shacks on the one side as well. Has there been some progress made in these various discussions in these years of protest and dissension between the community and the municipality?
Between 2015 and 2017, there were members on the mayoral committee that really took Hangburg seriously and really put in a massive effort to get things going over here. That was the period where the community actually sat down and was actually willing to listen and started regaining the faith that they had when the peace accord was brought into effect. But because of the internal struggles in the administrations and, you know, their infighting caused there to be a shift in leadership. And ever since that shift in leadership, Hangburg has been forgotten. The progress that you're seeing, I mean, speed bumps being painted, potholes being fixed and, you know, the like, have only happened in the last month or two. And, you know, a lot of people claim it, and it sounds so cliche that it's election time now, the work is being done, but it never rings more true than what it does now at the moment. And I mean, if we look around, you see the shacks and you see those types of things. In the accord, we basically all committed, all parties committed to alleviating that situation. But you couldn't even put in running water and electricity, which is something that's enshrined in the Constitution. It's a basic human right. You promised it in a court, which is the highest body or Chapter 9 institution in our country, is our courts. And you couldn't even honor that. So if the administration doesn't really respect the rule of law and respect the constituents, then how do the people then have any faith in your administration? You know, so the situation, yeah.
Thank you very much. That was Lee Smith, a community activist here in Hangburg, just painting a picture of what we've seen over the last couple of years. And something interesting he mentioned is that just over the water, you have some of the wealthiest property in the country, and then next to it you have a township, and opposite it you have Hangburg, where you have a mix of low-income, middle-income households, and also some of the poorest people living in shacks and struggling for daily survival.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's eNCA's Monique Mortlock reporting there. I simply love it. The authenticity of the voices, people speaking from the heart. They are feeling the pinch, right? They are wearing the shoe and are feeling the pinch. It's okay that we're doing this now ahead of local government elections, but I do wish that we have a consistency as a country, focusing consistently beyond the election cycle on some of these issues.